Give him 125 milligrams Solu-Medrol IV push. It's time for Must Have Seen TV, the podcast dedicated to the TV shows of the 20th century, from Perry Mason to ER. Heyo. I'm your TV guy, Brett White, and say hello to the green to my Ross, Ethan K. Hello, Ethan.
Hello, Brett. Brett,
Oh man.
this is the end. This is the end of this season, and this season we did all dramas, which is why you said, TV shows of the 20th century, not
Yeah.
sitcoms of the 20th century. We've done Perry Mason, we've done Family Affair, which was ostensibly a comedy, but it really was a
Ain't
drama.
no laughs.
We did what did we do in the 70s? I keep thinking it was Streets of San
The
Francisco.
Magician.
The Magician with Bill Bixby. We did The Love Boat, which is a comedy, kind of a drama. There's a lot of
It's an
dramatic
hour
elements.
long, and yeah.
I'm sorry, an hour and a half long
Oh yeah, when
of,
you're
of
doing
Love Boat. Um,
also, and now closing out with a show that I've been dying to talk about probably for decades, well, at least for 7 years, ER. I'll also say maybe we should stick to comedies, because in this course of these 5 episodes, my dad has died and my mom was involuntarily admitted to a mental hospital, and I had to drive down to Tennessee to bust her out, and I have gone on leave from work a second time. So let's stick to funny stuff, because apparently it bleeds into my life.
Comedies. More Mork and Mindy.
No, all Mark and Mindy,
The
all
Flaming
all,
Shield.
oh God, what was the little Toko Jijo or
Coco
Poco
Gijo. Yeah. Comedies.
Little
Great
Mice?
comedies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, but not today.
No, but I mean, honestly, well, I got a lot to talk about when it comes to ER, but especially my identifying with Doug Ross, played by George Clooney. That is a thing we'll get into in a little bit. Got a
You're
lot of
also bouncing from woman to woman? My God, Brett.
Yeah,
I
man.
thought you were married.
I'm juggling all of these women who look very similar. Well, they have the 90s hair and the shoulder pads.
Well, there's one fun thing we can say about a little piece of trivia about one of his paramours, but we'll talk
We'll
about
save
that
that. Oh, okay, yeah.
when we get there.
Uh, but so this is not only is this the end of a round of drama episodes, we're also at the dawn of the a new age, baby. Because everyone who has sat or Patreon, baby.
We're in
I was
Patreon.
trying to make a fun intro, but that ain't happening. The fun starts next time. But what does this mean for y'all, the consumer?
Yes,
Um,
we have started a Patreon. You can look it up on Patreon under Must Have Seen TV. You'll
yes,
see Brett's wonderful face. And you'll
but
ask,
only for a little while longer.
you'll ask, why are you doing a Patreon? You're two schlubby dudes who live
Hey,
in New York State.
sometimes I'm a gorgeous woman
And sometimes Brett's a gorgeous woman
with a
named Barb.
mustache.
The reason we're doing this is because we've looked back at what we've done. We want to do more episodes. We have a plan for doing more episodes, but we want the episodes to be good. Yes, we want them to be
Yeah,
good.
well,
And
revolutionary.
the way to do that is we need to hire an editor. And podcast editors ain't a dime a dozen. They are a skilled bunch. So the money that we are going to try to collect through the Patreon it's not going to go to my book habit or Brett's home improvement trading card habit.
No,
It's going
hey,
to,
yeah. Also, anyone you want these, let me know. I have so many doubles.
they're going to go to paying an editor to add in a theme song at the beginning of our episodes and to edit out a lot of the crosstalk, a lot of the ums and the uhs and the parts where we're trying to wrap our heads around certain pieces of content that you, the current listeners, have to kind of sit through as we, you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, You might even edit out off topic miscellaneous who knows who what's it's. But I do think that those will still be in the video versions. So I think that's a fun little reason to double dip. Who knows? And also retroactively paying for new podcast art, baby, because we're getting a Dynamo refresher with Barb and Ethan added into the
Dynamo
mix.
Dynamo is a phenomenal artist. She has done the Mad Men coloring book, the official Mad Men coloring book.
Well, and if you also Mad Men'd yourself back in 2008, that was her.
Yep. Uh,
So
uh,
that's
Brett
nuts.
Brett knows her personally from the improv world. I know her from the internet improv world, where I've seen her do some amazing shows. Neo Tokyo Girl Crush, which is the improvised Japanese magical girl adventure, which was a fantastic show. I've seen that at least once. She did Brett's original Must Have Seen TV logo, and she's going to be doing two new ones for the future seasons, one with me and Barb and one with me and Brett. So
Hmm.
so you should be able to see which episode uh who is co-hosting with me.
Yeah, and it'll be yeah, and that it'll be a lot of fun. And well, so what does this mean in terms of scheduling? We're gonna try to get on. No, not try. Do. There is
Do.
no try. uh what we're looking at, baby, is a did I say Thursdays? Yes, Thursdays. Thursdays. We're going. I think I started out posting the show on Thursdays because that is the must see TV day night. And so every other Thursday, you can call that bi-weekly, you can call that bi-monthly. I'm not here to argue semantics. Every other Thursday is a new episode on the main feed. But then every other Thursday,
Also
you'll be
bi-weekly.
also bi-weekly or bi-monthly. You will be getting another episode on the Patreon, a more loose, informal, structured, probably shorter. Must have now TV where we just talk about what we're watching right now, also reading right now, movies right now, music right now, just all sorts of whatever. So yeah, you'll still be weekly, but now you have to pay like what, $3,
five
$5
dollars
for
I
the
think.
for the other half of the episodes.
I think
But
it's
whatever.
$5. Something else we're also looking to do with this is get some text down as well. Brett's a writer, I'm a writer. Our plan for this is not only is there going to be video content, not only is there going to be audio content, there is also going to be written content that goes up on the Patreon as well. Just another reason to subscribe and know that again, this money is going to make the podcast better. This is not paying any salaries for Brett or myself. This is
Yet.
really yet. This is really to make the experience of Must Have Seen TV better for you, where we have a more professional opening, and the episodes come out probably shorter, since we're going to be cutting out a bit of the uhs and the ums and the ers and the what was that guy's
And me,
name?
yeah, and all the fights that I like to pick.
Yeah, we edit those
Oh,
out anyway.
yeah, because I put a lot of people on blast with my Doug Rossian attitude, which again we can get to later.
So check us out on Patreon, patreon.com. We encourage you to help us out and be part of this cool thing with us. And we'll be talking about the Patreon probably later in multiple episodes in the future.
Yeah, ad nauseum. And also there will be a lot more opportunities for listeners to interact with us and also listeners to get your names and comments and whatnots read on the podcast and get that lovely little dopamine hit of, oh my God, I have been noticed.
We love you all.
We all love being noticed. Sometimes we get dependent on being noticed. And then when we stop being noticed or appreciated, it goes, so this week we're traveling to May 11th, 1995. French Kiss rolled the box office. This Is How We Do It by Montel Jordan topped the charts, and NBC aired the ER episode Motherhood. Ethan, you must have seen Motherhood before today.
The ER episodes that I have seen snippets of have not been
This.
uh first season episodes. Now I was aware of ER because when it hit, it was huge. It was
Oof.
enormous. It redefined television drama. And I'm not just,
No, yeah,
blowing
it
smoke up ER's ass.
what so like yeah, so our history with ER, mine is ER is the very, very, very first TV drama that I ever watched. So, like, that's big, big deal, Bob. I am 10. I'm almost 11 when this episode airs. I have watched probably all of season one. So it is wild because me and my husband just completed rewatching all 15 seasons, which honestly kind of started around the time we started this cycle of episodes. So, like, yeah, we watched all 15 seasons in like 2 months or so. Um, it blew my tiny 10-year-old brain, and going back and rewatching a lot of it, finally being able to understand it, I was like, I can't believe A, this aired on television, and B, that I watched it with my parents and they were like fine with this. uh but I think what ER did, and I think that it doesn't get enough credit for now, because people like to act like TV drama didn't wasn't worth it or exist before, The Sopranos, baby, bada bing, or the dawn of peak TV when Breaking Bad and what, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. ER did all that before all those shows,
Yeah.
and people can say that about your Hill Street Blueses and your Saint Elsewheres and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What sets ER apart from those shows, of which it is standing on the shoulders of, is that prior to ER, medical dramas were very case of the week, more like the Perry Mason. Like it was that, like,
Yeah.
patient comes in, they got a mystery, there's a lot of talking, they run some tests, blah, blah, blah. Maybe there's some melodrama, etc. Michael Crichton tried to get ER made for 20 years before this,
Yeah.
and he wrote it he wrote the pilot episode as a movie script in the 70s, and everyone was like, we aren't going to make this. What is this? We do not understand half of half of like the words in the script because they're all things like give him 125 milligrams solumedrol IV push, or Bovie or VFib, and what ER did was it took medicine not as a case of the week detective mystery kind of thing, and showed it as a gory, bloody, real human, like the process of what emergency medicine is, with no hand holding, no dumbing down, shot at breakneck speeds with like revolutionary camera techniques, of which Mr. Quentin Tarantino utilizes a whole lot of stock camera renovations or innovations, renovations. This is also Property Brothers.
And I think it's also important to mention why those old dramas were like that. Those old medical
Oh
dramas,
yeah,
because it was cheap.
yeah,
Writing one long script about so and so's problem, and then you have a lot of people sitting in offices talking, a lot of people sitting around tables talking.
yeah. Like,
There's
the girl's like, my friend says she isn't gonna see another Christmas. We should throw Christmas for her in October. Like that.
That's easy to film. That is something you can. And I saw a great example of this was someone, I forget who mentioned it, was like those dramas would linger on people getting out of their cars
Yeah.
and walking through the parking lot to the front door because it was cheap. But ER flipped all that. There's so many things in this episode that are just like this happens and this happens and this accident comes in and this person's bleeding and then this. There's so much that goes on in this, and that's expensive
Yeah.
because not only are you filming at a breakneck speed, you're hiring way more actors than you would
Hundreds of people.
in just in a regular episode. It's
And
not.
there's 25 episodes in this season, which is crazy.
It redefined what TV medical drama could be. So, like you said, before this, you had Medical Center, you had Marcus Welby, MD, you had Quincy, ME. going back to Dr. Kildare, Ben
Mm-hmm.
Casey, these dramas, or even if you wanted to be really, really specific and really heighten the drama part, General Hospital and The Doctors, which no one talks about. The Doctors. It was a soap opera that ran from 1963 to 1982. No one talks about it, and it had over 5,000 episodes. No one talks about The Doctors.
Who? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
But and so what's weird is I think that like ER, which has over 300 episodes, has fallen into that as well, oddly enough, because I do think that a lot of people's memories of television don't go back further than 10 years usually. It's like a rolling 10 years. You'll see, Variety's best TV episodes of all time, and there'll be like maybe one or two from before the year 2004. And it's like, guys, TV wasn't invented in the 21st century. And if ER would just land on Netflix, then maybe people would be rewatching it instead of Suits all the time or whatever. But no, it is on Hulu and HBO Max. I refuse to just call it Max. So watch it again. And what made ER so groundbreaking in 94, 95 when it debuted makes it incredibly watchable now because the adrenaline and fast pace of those early seasons of ER cut out a lot of that bloat that makes watching 30-year-old television a little bit like, okay, I'm kind of tired.
Yeah.
There are no shots of people just getting in and out of the cars of ER because they got people with rebar through their abdomens to see.
This episode in particular, I don't know if this is the case. There, I'd say it was 70% ER shenanigans and 30% interpersonal drama.
Yeah.
But everything, there was so much going on with this, and I can't compare it to other episodes like that. But I can imagine that if you tilt that needle in the opposite direction and start making it more about everyone's interpersonal dramas, it becomes a soap opera, and
Yeah.
it loses some of that hook.
That's
Like
what
you
we
said,
call ER seasons 7 through 15. It becomes a different show, but a good show. The
uh,
fact, and so like yeah, like this show changed my life when I was 10. Like that's and what is wild is like same with Friends. Like I watched this from when I was in fifth grade, from fifth grade to a sophomore in college.
20,
Like
it went to 2015. A lot of the
or it
and
went until 2008, I think. 15
2002,
years.
sorry,
Or
2009,
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
It was kind of famous for a lot for really hitting like actors, making them big stars. George Clooney became huge. Anthony
You're
Edwards
already
was able to
huge,
walk
even
away.
bigger.
Uh,
Juliana Margulies, legendary.
Noah Wiley went on and did the Librarian franchise, and he's on Leverage, so he's a Dean Devlin
Oh,
player.
and Maura Tierney comes on in season 5 and
Yep.
is on the show for like a decade, which is
John
wild.
Stamos is on it
John
as a regular.
Stamos's tenure is wild. Linda Cardellini goes from playing a high schooler on Freaks and Geeks to like 3 years later playing a single mom on ER, and it's like, oh God, wow.
But it was I think it was well known for these people would get big and then they would leave the show. And season 15, a lot of these characters came back.
It's
Uh,
so rewarding. Well,
yeah,
and
a lot of
also
these
ER
actors.
does the really cool thing of there are two characters who are in early seasons who leave and then come back and are series regulars again, like 8 years. Both
Yeah,
Sherry Stringfield, who plays Susan Lewis, who leaves in early season 3, comes back, I think in season 8, and is on for another 4 years. And then Ming Na Wen, Ming Na
yeah.
it plays Dr. Deb and then comes back in season 1 in a recurring role as a med student, then comes back in like season 7 or 8 and is on. And I always loved that. Like, and when I met Ming Na Wen, I was like, I've loved you since back in the Dr. Deb days. And
I got to give a little bit of like gossip to Sherry Stringfield, Susan Lewis leaving. Is not only did she leave this show after 3 years because she's like, I want to be have a family. Um, she
they,
was on Guiding Light as a regular, quit after 3 years. She was on NYPD Blue, quit after 22 episodes. Like she had these like opportunities, and it finally caught up with her in
She was locked
ER.
in a contract and she
Exactly. She
couldn't
was in a
do anything.
5-year contract. She did 3 years, and she's like, I want out. And they're like, cool, we'll let you go. You're not allowed to act in anything on TV for another 2 years. So
Yeah.
she did theater, and she's still working. But it was just kind of like this. I just don't want to do this, and she just walks away from all these projects. She's great in this. I absolutely loved
Well,
her in
and
this.
and like what I loved, like Dr. Lewis leaving ER was the first time that I experienced the heartache of a character leaving a TV show, because it comes out of nowhere. It's like episode 8 of season 3 and it's like, wait, what? It's so great.
Um,
Uh okay, well, hold on. I need to my my friends are having a text party, and I don't know how to I don't like it. I don't like my fucking iMessages having to pop up on my laptop. Mute for today. God. Okay,
maybe for
sorry.
all of today.
Anyway, this week on Must Have Seen TV, we're talking about the ER episode Motherhood. It is the 24th episode of season 1, and it was written by Lydia Woodward and directed by, of course, Quentin Tarantino, new Oscar winner Quentin Tarantino. Here's how Hulu describes the episode. Dr. Lewis's mother, Valerie Perrine, drops by the hospital to see her and Chloe, Kathleen Wilhoit. Ross treats 8 children with digestive trouble. Ethan, how accurate is that description of the episode?
That's garbage. That is a garbage episode.
That
I wouldn't
looks
want to
like
see that.
yeah, man. Those are the okay. The mother part, yes, it's a Mother's Day episode, so like that part. But like the digestive issues is literally like one scene, of which there are a bajillion scenes. Anyway,
Of which in that one scene it guest stars Kathy Griffin
yeah,
for all of 45 seconds.
fraction. The episode has one of the funniest cold opens, and like the pre-credits of this episode, before you even get to the credits, baby, is one of the funniest and also most ER-ian ways to open an episode. So, Ethan, also please ask me all the questions about who the fuck all these characters are.
I don't know anybody. I just wrote them by their real names, like Eric LaSalle and Julianne Margulies, and like
Because at this point, we're at the end of season 1, so we've had a whole season of world building and stuff. And so, like, Susan's sister Chloe, who is a junkie to be terse or whatever, she's got a lot of problems. She came back pregnant and has been living with Susan, and Susan's like, okay, I'm taking care of you. And this episode opens with Susan is sleeping, and then you just hear Chloe from off screen being like, Susan, I think it's time. And Susan has such a great response. It's so like threads the needle of who her character is. Where her initial like reaction is like, what, like, okay, are you having contraction, like, just like the measured, like, listen, it's my fucking sister, I gotta make sure
I was
first.
she was working until 1 a.m.
Yeah.
She needs to sleep. She can't do this. But the baby is coming. The baby is.
And when like Susan realizes it, she like darts up and looks. He's like, "Why didn't you get me earlier?" And Chloe's like, "Well, I had to shower and gather my things." It's like she showered after her water broke. and, then, and then Susan's just like freaking out and like grabbing stuff, and then Chloe starts screaming like, "Well, I need my music. We gotta get the White Album." And so Susan like rushes, gets a boombox that's covered in like hippie flower stickers, and starts just shoving cassette tapes into her bag.
Oh,
and then she's like, hold on, my keys. I got to clap for my keys, which I did not remember like there being like little clapper
I didn't
would
remember that.
be, which
I don't remember
honestly
that.
still useful.
I would love that for my AirPods.
Then they like immediately like get out. They show up at the ER. Chloe's screaming, Susan's barking orders. Carter's he's a med student. No, Wiley, he's a med student. This is like first year doing rotation in the ER.
He was in his
His
mid 20s when he did this, and did I believe over like 245 episodes,
He's
250.
the most tenured. He stays on until season end of, but then he comes back a lot
He
after
was one of
11.
the highest paid actors. He was the highest paid actor in a drama. He was getting $400,000 an episode at the time of that this
Hell
was.
yeah.
He's
And
great.
so what this again, like they come bursting in and Susan's like, Carter! And he like does a full on Dick Van Dyke level pratfall. Like you just see him through like the little window and he just like backwards in his chair, coffee cup up, and, and then just like the entire thing. And then we get to the maternity ward. Susan's pouring coffee on herself, trying to call the maternity doctor. They get there, the cassettes, and the Carter puts in the wrong cassette, and it's French rap, and then it's like
So
it's
Chloe has to listen to Blackbird when she has this baby, making this probably one of the most expensive episodes of television history.
yeah.
Because do you ever wonder why you don't hear the Beatles very much in TV and film? It's because they're expensive to
Yeah.
license.
I mean, it's shorthand for reality TV stars now that if you ever want what you're filming to not be featured in the show, you just start singing the Beatles, and that'll get them to not be able to use the footage. So they start singing Blackbird, and now I also so long time ER viewers will also note that this harried fucking intense opening scene also introduces Nurse Chuny Marquez, who is on the show for 15 seasons, and this is her first appearance helping deliver Chloe's baby, which
Really?
is fucking wild. Laura Cerrone, I think is her name. Uh and then like she has the baby, and I just what when you're going back and rewatching this and you see this scene and you see Dr. Lewis is there with Carter and Chuny is there and Chloe, and you have the foresight of knowing everything that Susan and Chloe are going to be going through, all that little Susie's going to go through when she gets kidnapped and ends up on an episode of NBC's Third Watch and a crossover later on. It's just like this real beautiful human moment, and I love it. To have your sister deliver your baby, like it's just beautiful.
I want
That's
to
me.
point out, I want to say too that this is a very hard episode to recap
This
because
is what's going to happen, baby.
because things just happen and then you don't go back to them.
Yeah.
It's like someone comes in, and my all my notes are then this person comes into the ER, and then this person gets operated on, and then this person has to be intubated. Like it's
What
that level of
ties
just boom, 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 boom.
what I think is really cool, and like what I noticed, the watching it this time around is like how central the theme of motherhood, of course, is to the episode. It's titled then it's set on Mother's Day, but like all of the it's set on Mother's Day, and a lot of the plots and stuff, the
Yeah,
thrust of a lot of the character arcs are all about motherhood. And like one of the, at the end of the episode, it becomes clear that like Susan being a mother to Chloe is also a big part of this episode.
yeah.
Like it's so, but I bet the fucking theme song, baby. so Ethan, let me tell you about the event that was the fucking theme song of VR in my household, which was that we bought stereo. When like you watch stereo, we're available. Like that was the whole
Yeah.
thing. We actually got a stereo system for our TV early 90s Christmas. And ER was the only show that we would watch in stereo. And when the theme song came on, it was literally my job to turn it up because it was my mom's favorite song. So much so that she bought the ER soundtrack on CD through Columbia House because this can't be any more 1994.
Well, it only
Uh,
cost her a penny.
yeah, exactly. I also had to get Smash Mouth's Fuss You Mang and CNC Music Factory Gonna Make You Sweat and County Crows August and everything after. Um,
Like, believe me, we all got into CDs and cassettes and vinyl through Columbia House or BMG,
hey
one of
baby,
those two. That's how
the
I
theme
got all
song
my Guns
is
N' Roses albums.
the theme song is such a adrenaline rush. Like it infuses a lot of like sounds of the actual ER with like an orchestral riff, but also like rock guitar. And it does the thing that theme songs should always fucking do, where you got the actor and the character, the name, and it updates as people come and leave the show. That is important to television.
Because you don't. I had to spend time looking up these characters, being like, well, is this who's playing Diane Leeds? Oh,
Oh
that's
God,
Lisa Zane, or is that somebody else? Is that Andrea Parker? Because I can't tell because just but by their face.
they're
Like I don't
both
know.
George Clooney ladies.
They're both George Clooney ladies. Um,
Do we want to take a Love Boat style of this and like go character, like talk more about like what
if
characters are doing
if
than
you think that makes more sense, I'll go along with that
because there's so much.
because I have like my notes are Carol doesn't like fiance's family, guy with rebar in his guts, guy with ammonia and a bleach, unconscious, little rangers with gas. Those there's no other notes around those. It is just those four things, just boom, 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 because they all happen within a minute of each other.
Yeah. So we'll start with first of all the Carol Hathaway storyline. So Juliana Margulies, who a lot of people you guys know from The Good Wife,
Yep.
whatever. Dr. Carol Hathaway is one of the greatest characters of all time. There was Ethan, go watch the episode where Carol is just going to a bodega, and then all of a sudden, Ewan McGregor holds up the bodega, and it is just an hour of Carol in the bodega dealing with like the people that she shot. Ewan McGregor's cousin got shot, and it's just Juliana Margulies just holding down the fort. She is so good.
She was supposed to die in the
Yes,
pilot, and then she didn't. Uh,
her character tries to commit suicide in the pilot, and she sticks around, and therefore, and I guess it's because they like Juliana Margulies, like they worked with her on the pilot. It's like, holy fuck, this character is amazing. Because the pilot ends and she's not alive. Like, I don't think that
right.
they say whether or not it isn't until episode 2. She comes back to work in like episode 4. But what you get with that is like that one kind of, I don't know if you're setting out to do a story. I don't know if character tries to commit suicide in pilot and then we deal with the fallout of that as a thing you would naturally just go to immediately. But because they made that decision to keep Juliana Margulies around, it opened up this door to actually have a character talk about mental health and depression and like wanting to kill yourself and then
Ah,
living after that. And then also like this decision follows her for 5 seasons. Like she tries to adopt a kid in season 2, and then when they find out that she had a suicide attempt, they're like, actually, no. And it's like, Jesus Christ. And then it gives her also a point of entry into when other characters come on the show later on. She then like sometimes has to tell them, like, yeah, no, I tried to kill myself once. And like it's a cool, it's a not
hmm.
cool, but it is a
Well, it's not cool, but
yeah, but it's like such a real dramatic thing that you do not see that often on television, even still. And she's such a great character. And at this point, she is engaged to an asshole,
yeah, we
to a
don't see the
rich fucking
asshole.
asshole.
We're just told about him that she doesn't like him, that the two of them just don't get along. They have to survive the wedding. Sounds like
Yeah.
a bad thing. Uh,
I
yeah,
mean, his
Juliana
name is
Margulies.
Tag. Like, can you
Tag.
name a good person named Tag?
Oh, I can't remember anyone named Tag.
Now, like, so other scenes with Carol that I love, which I guess means we're going to get to why this episode is appropriate for Pride Month or sooner than I expected. But there's another scene later where it cuts to her in the break room and she's just like arguing on the phone about like the parents and like the caterers quit, blah 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 blah. And then she like hangs up and then turns, and then Dr. Lewis and Dr. Green are just standing there. They've been in the room the whole time. And are like, "Hey, it's okay." I love that scene. Uh, and then later on in the episode, we get an amazing scene of Carol and Susan on the roof in beach chairs with sunglasses on, tanning in the middle of the day.
Very strange. And I don't know if that was a Quentin Tarantino decision, because there were some things here that I'm like, okay, that's a Quentin Tarantino decision. Or just this was just something that I didn't know if this was just something that they do.
No,
No?
this is why this episode is gay canon, because it is camp and it is iconic. It is two iconic female leads blowing off work, hanging out in the roof. I love like it's the shot composition. It's just like two beach chairs, both of them on it. The shot is low, so you're really only seeing like, well, or you're seeing their feet, aren't you?
You are seeing their feet. You're seeing
Oh,
their
Quentin.
feet.
But then like they're like cool Ray Bans, and like they both have their like shirts tied up in like a with the midriff showing. They have bottles of Coke on each side, and it's like, and they're having this like patter back and forth because they're both like going fucking through it. And they're like, yeah, where are you going to the honeymoon? We're going. Tag's going to Paris. I'm going to Hawaii. Can I join you in Hawaii? Yeah. Do you think Chloe will miss me? Do you think anyone misses us? Like, it's really great. Uh,
I like that
so good.
because in you needed that break from all the
Yeah.
adrenaline, because there's
Yeah.
so much adrenaline just happening. It's just things happening. People are dying, people coming in, people are bleeding, people are being cut open, and this is a calm point.
Yeah.
This is just the two of them on the roof talking about her shitty marriage and her shitty sister.
Well, it's yeah, so let's so the Susan Chloe storyline continues with like the introduction of the mother. Now, I feel
Cookie.
like you know who the mother is.
The mother is Valerie Perrine, who is a fantastic actor. Um, everyone remembers her as Miss Tessermacher from the Superman and Superman 3. She got an Oscar nomination for her role in Lenny, the Lenny Bruce biography.
Okay.
Um, and she was in Can't Stop the Music that we talked about
Oh,
last
she
episode.
was?
Yeah, she
Wow.
was the female lead. And as we can all, everything leads back to Bill Bixby. She went topless on PBS for the show Steam Bath, which starred Bill Bixby. Steam Bath was one of those controversial plays where people get naked, uh, and some PBS affiliates refused to show it.
Uh-huh.
But I really do want to see it because it's an interesting concept. It's people in a steam bath, like a bath, bathhouse, a sauna, and it's various people, and it turns out they're all dead. And
Oh.
this is like the waiting room in heaven, but they don't realize it. And God
Heaven?
and God is the towel boy. Also starred Anthony Perkins, I believe. I think he directed it too.
Theater.
So
So she shows up because of course, her daughter has had a baby, and she shows up and it's played over the top. Like we all of a sudden we see basically like a pair of legs and then just like a whole bunch of balloons and flowers covering like the entire top part of the body.
this is the nicest gesture that Valerine Perrine does for Chloe the
Oof.
entire episode.
I do love that during this scene, Susan is wearing a Yosemite Sam shirt. Is that what she was sleeping in? I guess I totally like didn't even notice it until like these scenes that she was wearing a Yosemite Sam
I
shirt.
did mention that she was wearing the Yosemite Sam shirt throughout the entire episode.
Yeah, which I love that. But like so like she shows up, they're in the maternity wing. They go in just like the dynamic between these three women immediately becomes clear. I love that we hear the line like Chloe is trying to breastfeed and she says that he has a mouth like a staple gun. And then like the mom has brought lunch. Chloe takes the lunch. She folds up two slices of bologna like binoculars to look at her mom.
I don't know why she did that. It makes no
Which
sense. And she's eating deli meat
yeah.
as she gets in a fight with her mother.
Yeah, we immediately get the vibe of like Susan keeps saying, like, yeah, Chloe's going home tomorrow. I know you and dad have agreed that she's going to stay with y'all. You're going to help her. And the mom is very, like, almost non-committal to this. She's just like nitpicking everything. And this like brings Susan Lewis into such a sharp focus of like, oh yeah, she had to be the mom. Like she grew up with like
You're the only responsible
the
person.
only responsible person in the entire family, which retroactively like puts so much of her character before this point and then definitely after this point into view.
At one
uh
point, and even there's no like the father is the same way. We don't see him, but we do hear from Valerie Perrine that, oh, I have to go. I need to stop by the market to get beer because you know how your father is when he doesn't have any beer.
and you know who plays the dad?
Pete
uh
Sampras,
no, Paul
tennis pro.
Dooley.
Paul Dooley.
Beloved character actor Paul Dooley.
I
Yeah,
love Paul Dooley. I just saw a picture of him as a young man the like earlier today, which is weird. I'm like, oh, that's Paul Dooley, but it does not look like. It looks like a rockabilly Paul Dooley.
yeah. So like what? So like after this scene, then like we get someone comes in because it was Mother's Day brunch or whatever, and they started choking. They bring this person in. It is a classic like ER. Everyone's like all hands on deck. This guy is choking. Carter, we need to intubate. Blah blah blah. And then you just as all of this mayhem is going on, you like swings around and then Cookie like walks into the ER room and it's just like, can I talk to you? And Susan's like, what? No, and then she goes out and oh yeah, and so like man, this is so many. So this sequence I also loved. Susan is then excused, like, yeah, go talk to your mom, whatever. She goes out. Meanwhile, Carter has been instructed to go check on an old woman who cut her arm at like a Mother's Day dinner. He walks in, it's an old lady, and she's like, no, it's not me, it's my mother, and turns around, and then the older woman, who has to be in her hundreds, with a crazy bloody arm, like bandaged up, just comically
Just falls out of camera
falls
view.
out of camera frame is great. And so then the conversation between Cookie and Susan is in the foreground, but in the background you hear like Carter being like code blue, and then just like nurses, crash carts running into this room at the far end of the hallway, while Cookie is saying one of the most horrible things I've ever heard a mother say.
She,
Uh,
she says that she can't take the baby because your father and I were planning on taking a
We're
cruise.
taking a cruise. She literally says, I wrote down, I did my best with you girls. I can't do it again. I don't want to do it again. I have my kids, Susie. I'm done. I have to stop by the market. We are out of beer. And you know how your father hates it when we're out of beer. And then she'd like touch it, like
Cleans
touches
up her
Susan's
face a
cheek
little bit because
and then
there's
leaves.
all kinds of fluids going around all
Blood
over
over.
the ER.
And it's
And
like,
then she
oh,
leaves.
fuck you, lady.
There was she earlier she was complaining, oh, the crib's not done because your father didn't put it together and I'm no good at these things. So if he's not doing it, it's not getting done. Just absolutely
Sociopath.
awful. So
And
the nicest
dad,
thing that she did was bring the deli meat.
yeah.
No bread, just rolled up deli meat.
And then so like the Chloe storyline continues where later on in the episode we see Chloe taking the baby for a walk. The mom is gone, and also Chloe meanwhile doesn't know that her mom has basically been like, you're on your own, kid.
Yeah.
So I think is so she's like taking little Susie, she decided to neighbor little Susie down for a walk, and she's like, oh, look at this vending machine. Oh, it has like what did you say, like bubble gum or like garbage or
Yeah,
something
there
on it?
was gum stuck to it. She goes, oh, it's
Jesus
bubble
Christ.
gum.
So
As
while she's taking the baby for a walk, Dr. Doug, George Clooney comes and he's like, Chloe, you're not supposed to be walking around with a newborn down here. And just Chloe's response is, it's okay. She likes it. But
that's what Megan says when we feed the cat duck sauce. We're like,
oh,
Megan, don't feed Monty duck sauce. Oh, he likes it.
yeah, so fine. And that's when immediately two teens like slam into the ER, like literally, he's carrying a woman who's foaming blood at the mouth, and they like land on the floor because she like took a speedball, which makes you wonder, did Steve Ditko know what speedballs were when he named Willie Baldwin Speedball?
Speedball in Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
What was his first appearance? Was it Speedball #1?
No, it was like Amazing Spider-Man annual number 20 something, and then he got Speedball #1. So
He
maybe
did
he
get
wasn't
Speedball
created
one.
by Steve Ditko. I don't know. But anyway, wild. So this makes Chloe like she immediately hands she is transfixed by this,
And she
by
gives the baby
watching this.
away.
She hands the baby off to Connie, another regular nurse who will be on the first like 11 seasons of the show. Uh and it's very like subtle, and it's not that it's because like she's seeing what her life was. I mean, in a way, she's kind of seeing like, I mean, the baby's father is like they met because they did drugs together. Like she's essentially seeing this is what my life was. How the hell can I take care of a baby?
Yeah. And then she just goes back to the room, and as the story continues, um, Susan, at the end, we get Susan is with the baby, and Noah Wiley comes up, and they're talking about the baby, and it's mostly about Noah Wiley's subplot, but she's
Yeah.
holding the baby, and then she also sings Blackbird again, probably making Paul McCartney just
It's
a
like
little bit more
so
wealthy
much
so
more
he could
money.
buy a couple more cars.
It's
Um,
that scene where like when Susan and Carol come back down from the roof and they do apparently what's a Reservoir Dogs reference, which I have not seen Reservoir Dogs, but they're both wearing the Ray-Bans, walking in step, and then turn at the same time and see Chloe, which again is another iconic gay
yeah.
canon shot, the two of them in those Ray-Bans in the ER.
We
But this is where you get like Susan is comforting Chloe the way that their mother should, the mother that's already abandoned them, and Susan doesn't tell Chloe that either.
Quentin Tarantino. Let's talk real quick about Quentin
Oh,
Tarantino and
let's
some
get there's
directing
a lot to
choices,
talk about.
because he's only directed 3 episodes of television. He's directed this, and he did a two-parter on CSI in 2005.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
Did he
he
also
did not.
write it?
I don't think he didn't write this episode.
No, he didn't. No. This was just
This
the episode of like this was the next episode in line.
this is written by Lydia Woodward,
Who
who was
was
also a producer on the show for most of
a
it.
very
And
long time.
yeah, um, but there's interesting shots
Oh
here.
yeah,
Um, the one that sticks out to me is that there's a scene at the end where Eric LaSalle, who plays
Doctor
Dr. Benton,
Peter Benton,
Peter Benton,
surgeon.
um, his mother has just passed, and he's there with, I don't know her name.
Candy Alexander plays his sister, or Jeannie Boulet, played by Gloria Rubin.
Yeah, that's who it was. Um, and he's having a conversation. He's just talking about his mom and the last moments with his mom, and the two of them are facing out a window, but
Yeah,
it's shot from behind.
yeah.
So they're having this entire conversation. You don't see their faces. You see their shoulders and their backs, and the entire conversation is done like that.
And
It's an artistic shot.
you see his reflection in the window, but I mean, like it's a reflection, so it's like
You
you
don't see
know
a lot of it.
you're
Yeah.
yeah, it's like this distance, and he's talking about like the last time that he was holding her hand just now with like holding her dead body's hand. It was just like I felt like I could stay in this moment forever. And it is a huge moment because like Peter Benton is the hardworking, hard ass dick. Like he's incredibly demanding and very stone cold. And what is really interesting about this scene is that like the very first thing, the thing that made it into TV Guide and stuff, a patient comes in who's been impaled with rebar. Yeah, they lose that patient. Um,
Yeah.
and earlier in the episode, we see the operations, and then we cut away to some other stuff. When we get back to Carter, who is Peter's student and is always following him around, and Benton's like, "Yeah, I got an appendectomy later today," and Carter's like, "Oh yeah, can I scrub in?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." They go through the door, and he immediately then has to kneel down and be like, Your son came in with massive trauma. We, did use all means necessary, and he did not die. Like he did not survive. And telling the mother this, and then
Yeah,
fade to commercial,
because
and
it's
then the
Mother's Day.
end. Yeah, and then at the end of the episode, he says like he goes to his mother's nursing home and is told the same thing, like
Yeah,
used all means necessary, and then he's telling Jeannie like I've said those words so many times, but I've never heard them until today.
yeah. Motherhood there's so many different aspects of motherhood in this. There's a little throwaway thing where an old woman got drunk and passed out in a parking lot, and her kids took her to the ER.
Yeah,
And that's just like another motherhood aspect. It's
Carter's
another
doing
family dynamic.
sutures,
It's another
sutures
family
on her.
dynamic. Um, if you want to go even more meta with it, Anthony Edwards, who plays Dr.
Dr.
Green,
Mark Green.
was in a movie that is the biggest bomb in UK box office history. It played in one theater. It had the opening night. It made $8 because one person bought a ticket. Over the rest of over its entire run in the UK, it made $88 because 11 people saw it.
The same guy 11 times.
And believe it or not, the name of the movie is Motherhood. It stars Uma Thurman.
Whoa. Uma
Yeah,
Thurman,
Uma
which is
Thurman.
another big Tarantino. Uh,
So just
well,
very, very strange. Like motherhood, motherhood, motherhood.
yeah, and like, well, I guess also because I mean Carter even says like I never expected Mother's Day to be this like crazy. Uh, so another so Carter, well, no, they're even more like Quentin Tarantino-y choices, like the rebar surgery. Like we really see like Tarantino is just like loving like rib spreader, like get the bone saw,
Yeah,
get
let's
the
get in
hands
there.
around the rebar. Like there's all these like close-ups of all of the like instruments.
He had just gotten recognized for Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction came out in 1993, 1994. No, it was 1994. He was the biggest thing.
Because he just won an Oscar, and then so
Did
there
he
are
win an Oscar
conflicting.
for? Wait, did he win it? He didn't win the Oscar for
Did
Pulp.
did he win an Oscar for writing?
I now I have to look it up. He's won two Oscars, but I don't think they were for Pulp Fiction.
Because then
I'm
the
gonna look it up.
newspapers got it wrong.
Let's double check. He because the things that he'd done before were Reservoir Dogs. He'd done a short film, and then um it was huge. Pulp Fiction was enormous.
Yeah, and so there are
Yeah, Pulp
two.
Fiction was 1994.
Yeah, or he at least been nominated for Oscars for Pulp Fiction.
He was nominated for Best Director, and he did win Best Writer
Okay.
screenplay written directly for the screen for Pulp Fiction. He also won for Best Writing Original Screenplay for Django Unchained,
Yeah.
and he's been a nominee for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Inglorious Bastards, and he was nominated for Best Director for Pulp Fiction, but it was not. Yeah, so he did. Yes, he did win an Oscar for Pulp Fiction.
So there are two stories that go around about how this happened. The more likely one, which is on the Wikipedia page, is that like George Clooney is in From Dusk Till Dawn, which films during the hiatus between seasons 1 and 2. And what is said is like Clooney was like, "Hey, you should come in and direct an episode of VR," and he was like, "Yeah, sure. This is the okay, cool." Um,
But the
that
timing
seems
doesn't work
plausible.
out.
Well, no, like it filmed, I would say probably early talks, like in the casting and like lead up to it, probably because it filmed like June 95. And this probably filmed April 95.
But
I mean,
this,
I don't
yeah,
know
but
how long it takes
okay,
to
yeah,
get a movie up and going, but
gotcha.
that's the story I think at least Clooney has told. But then the concurrent newspapers published around this time say, according to NBC, ER fan Tarantino contacted the producers about getting tapes of some episodes he had missed, mentioned that he wouldn't mind directing one sometime, and wound up getting asked to do tonight's, the Mother's Day special, which is wild to be like, I missed some episodes. Let me call up NBC to get some VHS tapes mailed or like sent by courier.
That's
Like that's
like you could do that if you win an Oscar.
hey, I won an Oscar. Give me all these episodes of VR I missed while promoting Pulp Ficky.
If you can
Uh,
believe it, George Clooney was on 8 episodes of the show called ER
mhm.
from 1984 to 1985. Not the same ER, but it was
Wild.
also called ER.
And so let's talk about George Clooney because, obviously the diarrhea storyline is the biggest storyline, not only of the episode, but of Clooney's character in this episode. Why else would they mention it on Hulu? And later you'll find out in TV Guide.
It
Um,
is it is four Boy Scouts or whatever, generic TV scouts they
Little
are
Ranger Scouts are brought in.
by Scoutmaster Kathy Griffin.
Yeah, this has to
Uh,
be very early.
the kids are sick. They probably drank some bad water, and one of them throws up on George Clooney. That's what happens. That's
That So I do want to point out, as we were talking earlier about how so much happens in this episode, but George Clooney, like Dr. Ross, who's the pediatrician, the emergency pediatrician, he walks in and the very first, like his very first line is like, "There's a horse in my parking space." And the desk attendant's like, "Why'd you take a horse here?" Is like, "It's not my horse. They need to see you over there." That
they
is not
don't
a plot point. That never comes up again.
they don't explain the horse. There's just a
I
horse there.
I
Someone's
love
horse.
that. I love that. But like that adds to the realism of this being a real ER because literally anything can happen in an ER, and boy does it.
And
Uh
boy, howdy does it.
literal howdies. His storyline mostly involves like the nurse rep that he's been sleeping with, who has a son who he's really hit it off with. Is like looking for new apartments because the landlord wants his daughter to move into the apartment they have, and she's like, maybe there's room for three.
Uh, yeah. Her name is
And
Diane Leeds. I looked her up. She's done voices. She was She-Hulk in the Incredible Hulk TV show. She was Madame Mask in the Iron Man TV show. She was in
oh
Biker Mice
wow.
Mars, and she's Billy Zane's older sister. It is Lisa Zane.
Uh wow. Okay.
Oh, and I also didn't mention that the actor who plays Chloe, the sister who just had the baby,
Yes.
is famous for being the voice of Pepper Ann in the animated series
Oh
Pepper Ann. We're talking about
wow.
voices.
There you go. So Doug's storyline basically is like he's seeing this woman, but he's also fucking like the pharmaceutical rep lady, the like super hot, who's
Yeah.
always like coming by, and she's like, "Hey everybody, I brought you guys donuts. Please use this new antihistamine."
There are rules about that. You can bring food. You just have to declare it as part of the Sunshine. Is it the Sunshine Act or the Pharma Act? Um, this is my job. Like I deal
Yeah.
with pharmaceutical reps. And this is the exact same plot that happened in Scrubs, with John McGinley and Heather Locklear, where she plays the drug rep and they have a relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's like in the real world. It's not something that really comes up. Um, although I shouldn't tell this. I shouldn't. Okay. So there are a lot of drug companies out there, and they all have their own sales force and their own reps. And there's no real place for them to get together except cafepharma.com. Cafepharma.com is just it's a news board where people post, news stories. It tells about the pharmaceutical industry, but it has a forum
Oh
and people
no.
can post anonymously.
Oh no.
So one of the habits that I get into is if I'm working on a new drug for a new company, I'll pop over to Cafe Pharma and see what their board is up to. And it is never the best of the best who are posting on Cafe Pharma. It is, yo, going to the salesman, I'm gonna hook up with so and so. She's great.
Yeah.
She did this to me last time. Oh, that's so cool. Or they'll get on each other's boards and be like, man, your drug fucking sucks. We're gonna eat your lunch, fuck you guys. Like it is sub junior high level bullshit. But it is all adults writing about their jobs,
Who
all
have
anonymously. So a
that's
little bit
and
of,
that is
fun
who.
fact.
And so like George Clooney, Doug has been juggling these women because he's a he's George Clooney. I mean, like, what he's George Clooney. He's one
He's
of the
Mc,
sexiest men to ever live.
he's McDreamy, isn't he? He's mix.
He's the original. Don't he? Patrick Dempsey wishes.
I know. George
Jeez.
Clooney had a long standing career before this. We saw him
Oh
in
yeah,
Roseanne.
Roseanne,
He did
Golden
Roseanne.
Girls.
He did Golden Girls. Well, I think he did.
Hmm.
I think he did one episode of Golden Girls. Um, his aunt is Rosemary Clooney.
Yeah,
Uh,
who's in an episode of season one.
he's the cousin of Miguel Ferrer.
Yeah.
Related to Abraham Lincoln. Um, so
But
in
not
the
Abraham Ben Ruby, who is also Jerry the front desk person, but he's only in like brief scenes in this episode.
Yeah, he's not a big guy. George Clooney left. He was not the first person to leave, but he was one of the big ones to leave. He left in 1999. In between starting the show and leaving it, he did From Dusk Till Dawn, Three Kings, and Batman and Robin.
Did he do
Three.
Peacemaker?
Did he
Or
do
is that
Peace?
right after? Was Peacemaker what he left to do?
Yeah, I think that he just was doing these big movies in the breaks. And he's just like, I'm gonna do better as a screen star than a TV star. And it's true. It worked
And
out for him. It worked out great for him.
he's no David Caruso. He actually made the right call. Um, and so like his storyline basically is like one of these two women. He has a one of the many basketball shooting hoops in the ambulance bay, heart to hearts with Dr. Green. They're two best friends, although they are polar opposites in terms of vibes. Uh, and the basically like Mark's like trying to give him advice because Mark's been married for a long time to, I don't use this term lightly, his bitch wife. She seems cool in this episode, but oh man,
What
she
was her
is
what was her name? Because I was like, oh wow,
Jen.
Jen.
Jen. She
No,
does him
Jennifer Green. She's played by Christine Harnos.
dirty. Oh man, yeah, she's the worst. Every time she would come back, me and Seb would always be like, "Oh God, her." She's unreasonable. She's awful. Anyway, but Doug's like, I don't know if like, am I ready to settle down? Is the fact that I'm asking if I'm ready to settle down a sign that I'm
Yeah.
not ready to settle down? And so what does he do? He kind of intentionally sabotages his relationship with the more stable one because he's like on a date with the pharma rep, like they're on his stoop and she drives up and he's like, "Oh, oops." it's
Oops.
it's bad.
They have a little bit. They have an argument in between from the car. It goes bad. And he goes, "Hey, it won't happen again." She goes, her last line is, "Yes, it will."
Yeah.
And she drives away, and he's like, "Well, my problem's solved." I don't know.
So
That
so
it just ends.
this is why I'm not Dr. Doug Ross. uh so Dr. Ross's other fatal flaw is that he oftentimes he frequently um uh disobeys protocol and all rules in order to follow the greater good and common sense.
Hmm.
Frequently in spectacular fashions, and usually that is the thing that gets me in trouble.
So that you relate to George Clooney's character, not because he's balancing two women who
Two
look
ladies at
very
once, babe.
similar.
Because he doesn't understand why you can't just why do we I hate formalities or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
talk about what's really happening here, people. Like, that's what I get in trouble about. But anyway,
Do we want to
yeah,
kind of wrap this? I mean, there's a lot
I'm just
going
like
on with
hitting.
these things.
I'm
I'm
just
wondering,
hitting a
like,
lot of.
you want to kind of like wrap up with Noah Wiley's bit because he's the last big character that we haven't talked about, and there
Yeah,
are
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of other
yeah,
amazing actors who are on this. You've
yeah.
got
The so
Andy
he
Alexander from News Radio.
who
You've got
doesn't even have a line. I think like
doesn't
she
even
plays
have a line. She exits a
Benton's
room.
sister. Uh,
CCH Pounder, who is Amanda Waller in the DC animated universe. Uh,
and she is the head of surgery. So, and she ties in. So, like Carter's subplot is he's coming to the end of his first year rotation. He has to choose. So, like he's trying to get the surgical sub internship, but he's also expressed an interest in emergency medicine. And Dr. Green is like, "Yeah, man, like you'd be great at this if you want it. Come on, you got it." But Carter does the like stupid thing of like, well, also similar to Doug, he's juggling two internships at once and
yeah.
ends up with neither because they end up passing him over for this. He's basically like holding the ER one at bay, waiting to see if he can get the surgical one, but he doesn't get the surgical one, and he's kept Mark waiting too long that Mark has already given the ER one away. So
Yeah.
he's stuck without anywhere to be next year. Will he still be a series regular and things will work out? Kinda.
Well, he did 254 episodes,
Yeah, he'll
so
be back.
things worked out pretty well for him. I can't wait to see him on the third season
Which
of Leverage Revenge
so
Redemption.
also so like at the very end when he goes to see Susan, and that's when he asks Susan about like, do you think that ER internship's still available? And she's like, oh no, he gave it away. So then Susan says, you look sleepy, we should put you down to little Susie because she's sleepy. But she says that as the camera is on Carter. You look sleepy, we should put you down,
Ah,
which is right after he's found out that he's not getting either internship. Like that
yeah.
is super good. Um one other big thing that I need to talk about is just like the general filming style of ER and how many done in one shots there are. Like the episode starts with dual traumas. We get the rebar guy, but then we got I mixed ammonia with bleach cooking Mother's Day lunch. I don't know what the fuck was going on there.
Mom is from a different planet. She eats bleach and ammonia.
And ammonia for is an aperitif. Uh, but like the two side by side ER rooms are both hot, they're both active, and the camera like follows CCH Pounder into one, and then like out another, and it goes into the other one. Like, and
Yeah.
what is super cool, and also later on when they're in the break room and Carol leaves and Mark like turns and taps on the window to Carter, who's in the ambulance bay, and then we follow Carter come into the ER and then into the break room. Like there's this real sense of space that is so cool.
Well, we saw the same thing in the basketball scene that they don't
Mm-hmm.
cut away from the shot of just the hoop, is that the entire scene up until the final basket where Dr. Green gives his advice, the rest of the scene is just George Clooney and and
Anthony
Anthony
Edwards.
Edwards actually playing ball. There's no,
Yeah.
they miss shots, they make shots, they run for the ball. They've memorized all the lines, which is not something that happens all the time, that you know the
Yeah.
entire lines of your scene, but they're doing it all in one take until the final, what do you think I should do? And then it
Yeah.
cuts to Anthony Edwards making that. Oh, he says
He's like,
it's,
if I
if I
make
make
it,
if I make this shot, then you move in
you're
with her.
ready.
You're ready. If I don't make this shot, you're not. And you don't see the ball go in, you just hear it bounce off the rim.
Yeah.
And then it's real. This is good TV. Look,
Well,
there's no
and
doubt about it. It is
so
good TV.
I saw also in concurrent newspaper articles, Juliana Margulies said that Quentin Tarantino did not like he wanted to have as much control over the final edit as possible, and he realized the only way to do that is to only shoot one take of everything. And so I think they've said like, yeah, we mostly did just this episode was shot in mostly one take, one takes, which is
Oh, that's
which will
beautiful.
come into play because the season 3 or 4 premiere was done live,
I do remember that. I remember
which
that was a
is
big thing.
wild. And I'm trying to think if that is all of, yeah, like Benton's also, so like another trauma comes in. It's when the gang violence, the girls come in who've been just like beating each other up, and like one's ripped off an ear, one has brain matter out.
Yeah, because one got
Another,
shot.
a third one comes in and is like starts punching the one that's on the trauma table, and then Malik, one of the nurses who's on for all 15 seasons, like has to tackle her off. During that, Benton, Jerry Abraham Ben Ruby comes in and is like, Benton, it's your mother, the nursing home's on the phone. And we see him in the distance, out of the window in the background. We see Carter see Benton hang up the phone and rush out before he then goes to the nursing home. Little
That's so
shit like
crazy.
that. That's so nuts.
Um, so his mother is played by Bea Richards. Um, and she has no lines in this. I assume she might have lines
She's
in.
in a lot of her well-being was a big storyline.
She is Oscar nominated for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Oh wow.
She is a playwright, a poet. She is an African American activist. She was on Broadway in James Baldwin's. She got a Tony Award nomination for 1965, The Amen Corner by James Baldwin. So like this is this is a heavy hitter as far as
Jesus.
like drama goes.
Yeah.
I'm a little sad that I didn't get to see more of her because she's dead by the time we see her. But yeah, like the people, everybody in this either went on to do something huge or had already done
Yeah.
something huge. Like
Uh,
Valerie Perrine, like yes, she's Valerie Perrine. Like Bea Richards, like, and then everybody else went on and did everything else.
sorry. I just turned my phone off of airplane mode so I could turn the lights on in my office, and I got a really important text message. Barbara Streisand goes all in for Biden. Yes, 700% match to crush Trump. So thank you, Democrats, for sending me such important text messages. Jesus.
As I was watching this
Oh,
episode, I found out that George Clooney also supports Biden and a 700% match.
hell
George
yeah.
Clooney, and I was watching George Clooney that night.
Ah! And also another thing that I really loved of this episode is the juxtaposition of doctors who treat this like work and the patients who are going through the worst moment of their life. I think that is so fascinating.
I
Like
think that but isn't that like the whole
the
point
whole
of the show?
series. Yeah. And it's just super like wild to see, like, well, specifically there's the scene where there are the two traumas going on, and it's CCH Pounder is just like breezily like walks through the first one, says like advice, goes into the second one. Meanwhile, the soundtrack is like people are screaming and whatnot. And they're just like, yeah, And it's like, oh, and also again, like uh Mark Green leaves one trauma room, and Halle, one of the other nurses, is on for a long time, is wearing a corsage that her kids gave her for Mother's Day. And he's like, oh, that's a lovely corsage. It's like, oh, yeah, my kids gave it. And they're saying this right next to the like mother or like wife, the wife of the ammonia bleach guy, who's like
Yeah,
watching her husband like in cardiac arrest or whatever. It's just like there are just so many moments like that that are just
yeah,
so yeah. Um, are we ready for must have facts? I mean, I don't know.
yeah.
Well, how does the episode end? The
No, it
episode
ends
ends
with
with her singing Blackbird, yeah,
yeah.
and Benton crying and kissing Jeannie, who is married, and that's going to be a thing. Uh,
Uh,
Da, 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 da. Oh, we also do get with the really brief scene of Carol. Mark's wife shows up for their Mother's Day dinner or whatever, and he of course has to go help a little girl who's having like heart failure. She ends up okay, and while he's away, we just get a really brief scene of Jen Green, his wife, talking to Carol about husbands and weddings and blah blah blah, and they're just like eating a whole pizza at the counter at the and just like having a really, it's one of the best things that Jen Green has done. It's one time I like her. But it's just like, again, shows this like sense of familiarity that this cast has, because you're like, oh yeah, no, like Mark's wife would absolutely know all of these people, and like,
Yeah.
she's not a series regular. She has one scene in this episode, but you totally immediately buy that there's a history and a comfort. And then when Mark comes and is like, yeah, sorry, girl, and he's like, no, the patient comes first. And it's like, yeah, she's fine with that now. We'll see what happens. um,
Well,
are you ready for the must have facts now
yeah,
after
let's
I'm
get some
done,
must-have facts.
done screaming about this?
Well, you
So
care about this series. This
this,
meant
yeah.
a lot to you when you were growing up. You were 10 years old. I was not watching dramas when this show came out. I was
Yeah.
15,
Yeah,
I
you
guess.
were just not as mature
Yeah,
as
I know.
me, fifth
1995.
grade.
What was I watching? I don't know. Probably something stupid. I don't even remember
Uh,
1995.
well, it's the year that Jurassic Park made its network television debut the week prior. uh,
Oh, yeah, directed by Steven Spielberg, who was the big supporter of Michael Crichton's
Crichton
ER,
getting this made.
um getting this made. Michael Crichton, who wrote Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I wrote the pilot of the episode of this show, which he only really had to change a couple things. Really.
A
Oh,
couple
he also
characters
he
changed.
changed Susan Lewis's character was a man, and he changed it to
Yeah.
Susan Lewis. Like that's like the main thing he changed.
I also heard a rumor that it was originally called ED, but I looked up for any kind of confirmation on it. There was like, so I don't know if take it with a grain of salt. I don't know.
Yeah. 21.8 million homes watched this episode of television. It was the number one show of the week. This is May sweeps, baby. We are like, this is the penultimate episode of the season. Big time of the season for all TV shows. The top 5 shows of the week were Home Improvement was number 5. Part 1 of The Langoliers was
Oh, the
number 4.
Langoliers. I remember that.
Seinfeld was
Ron
3, Friends 2, and ER 1. What was The Langoliers?
The Langoliers was a Stephen King
Stephen King.
adaptation. I forget who the lead was. Bronson Pinchot was in it.
Was it an
And
apocalypse thing?
no, it's the plane that everyone um falls asleep, and when they wake up, there are only like 5 people who are still on the plane. And the plane lands, and I haven't seen the whole thing, but they land and the world is coming to an end. It's like they're just out of step of time, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like the world is constantly ending, and it's like trying to catch up with the present day. So imagine like we come unstuck from time, we're 10 minutes behind, and the rest of like they're putting the chairs away, and the like it's little monsters that are eating reality behind the present day. It's weird.
I
uh
remember that the commercials for it scared me. Yet I was watching ER. I don't.
yeah.
Uh,
What?
the NBC Thursday night lineup. He says coughing. um.
Brett went on mute.
mm, um. Was Mad About You, followed by Hope and Gloria, then Seinfeld, Friends, and ER. Um. Uh, yeah. So I mean, I vaguely remember Hope and Gloria. I 100% watched it. It co-starred, I believe it co-starred the woman who played Bob Newhart's daughter on Bob. So like this is very esoteric. But this is also when Friends was in the sweet spot between Seinfeld and ER, which is where NBC would just stick anything and it would be a hit because
Yeah,
it's, that this is your Veronica's Closet time slot later on. There's a season of television where Veronica's Closet was like the number 2 most watched show on television.
because you were just waiting for to start.
Yeah, I'm not changing the channel. Um, but no, I watched all of those. This is my sweet spot. This is a time period I wish I could go back to at the age I am now.
Oh,
Take me
okay.
back. Take me back.
Because my answer about what I would be watching tonight is probably different now than it would have been when I was 15
Oh,
and this
oh,
was
just
happening.
wait. I also so like a course a lot of hay was made about Quentin Tarantino directing ER. A lot of the reviews of this episode night of were of this kind. Mike Hughes of the Jackson Sun. To the immense credit of both ER and Tarantino, you'll barely know that someone else was in charge this week. Week after week, ER is directed with style and skill. Hiring a whiz kid doesn't seem like much of a detour, and Tarantino is smart enough to avoid overwhelming the show. He does provide a few distinctive moments with a quirky bonding scene between Dr. Susan Lewis and nurse Carol Hathaway. Mostly, though, he lets ER be itself. At various points, that is tragic and exhilarating and gory. It's also sweetly, softly moving. I agree.
Great
Uh,
summary.
what's
Better than
wild
IMDb.
What's
Sorry.
wild though is that there's also an earlier episode this season where the cold open is a like 7 foot tall man is brought in on a stretcher, and at one point he like adrenaline like stands up, and because he's so tall he can walk with the stretcher around him and he carries it, and he like crashes through like the windows of like the trauma room and is just like going down the hallway screaming, and like people
Oi.
are like having to shoot tranquilizers in him. And I always thought that was the Quentin Tarantino episode. But no, that's just the ER another week. It's just
But
ER all the time. So what are you watching? And this is bleak. On ABC, are you watching Day One? How people can
oh.
make money by faking death.
They know that nothing is going against ER. So
This
they're
is
like,
season one, and they're like, oh God.
they're
On
like, all
CBS,
right.
are you watching 48 Hours? Slamming the door, the controversy over the price of the United States is paying for the new wave of immigrants.
Oh my God.
Or are you watching NBC, ER? Dr. Lewis,
Oh, this is good.
Dr. Lewis's mother shows up at the hospital. Dr. Ross treats 8 boys with diarrhea. Dr. Benton tries to save a teenager impaled by an iron bar.
Nothing about guest director, Oscar winner
Quentin
Quentin
Tarantino.
Tarantino.
Or
Oh,
like Dr. Benton's mother dies, Carter faces a choice about his future. Even like Carol faces wedding things is more important. Dr. Ross is caught cheating.
but no.
Diarrhea.
Scouts with diarrhea who we don't even see the diarrhea. Come on.
No, it only comes out but she does say Giardia, which I do like.
They do
Kathy
say
Griffin.
giardia.
Oh.
One kid farts.
Yes, there's a lot of farting.
Again, the scene is 45 seconds long.
If that, Jesus. What are you watching though?
I'm watching ER.
Okay, you're not watching about people faking money by death? Faking money
Faking
by
death,
death.
faking
Making
money
money
by
by
death.
faking death.
They're faking death to get money. No, I'm not watching that. I'm watching I'm if given these three choices, I'm watching ER.
Yeah, I should have broadened out to like, man, what's on Nick at Night right
Yeah, like what else? What else?
now?
There were local affiliates that were playing.
So on IMDb, 752 of my fellow ER-aholics rated this a 7.8 out of 10. Did you go higher or lower?
I'd go way higher. This is like an 8.3, 8.6.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking on the grand scheme of ER episodes, I would say this isn't, yeah, 8 point. It's an 8.0 at least, I would say. It's definitely in the eights. I
This
think
was
it shows it's commendable, or it's a complimentary towards ER that I think there are a lot of episodes in the first 5 seasons that are way better than this, which is crazy to say, but there's a huge chunk that this is way better than.
there's one thing that I wanted to check real fast is this is episode 24
Mm-hmm.
of this, that there are only 25 episodes of the season.
Yeah.
So this, you can imagine this was the time when they were doing a lot of the like Eric LaSalle's mother dies, George Clooney breaks up with the two women that
Yeah, there's a lot of wrapping up of a
pregnancy
lot of the
story. Yeah.
plots.
So yeah, I don't know what happens in the next episode if they can top this, which
It's the
believe me,
wedding. It's Carol, Nurse Carol's wedding.
Ooh.
Tag does not go well because she has to date the guy from Men Behaving Badly next season.
Oh.
The American Men Behaving Badly. He's a cutie too. He just has an anger problem on the show. And he's also he's not homophobic, and he wants you to know that. It's a very good story. Yeah. Who had the must see performance?
Ooh. I would, it's weird to say, but I think Noah Wiley was in more scenes than anybody else. Um, because he got to be in the opening
Yeah,
with
he's in a
the
lot
baby
of
delivery.
he connects a lot of the subplots because he has scenes with Green, Carol, Susan, Peter. Like he's
Yeah. I would say that for me it was him. There were other people that I was like CCH Pounder. I was like, "Oh man, she's great. I watch her in anything. I love
I'm
her."
so sad we didn't get William H. Macy because if you want to ask, have I always been this way? I will answer, I had a crush on William H. Macy on ER when I was 10. So
We also didn't
yes.
get Ming Na Wen.
Yeah. I think
She's first
she's
season,
already bailed by this point.
but she's
She
first season.
accidentally killed a patient and was like, I don't want to be a doctor. She ends up she does want to be a doctor. Uh but yeah, I mean, I think that I really love Sherry Stringfield in this. This might have been her Emmy nominee because she also got nominated for an Emmy. I think Juliana Margulies is the only person that ever won an Emmy for the show.
Oh, it was nominated for 124 Emmys. I actually wrote
It
it down. It won
unfortunately aired at the same time as fucking West Wing, and so West Wing won everything all the time.
it won 23 primetime Emmys. It was nominated 124th times,
Yeah.
which was it is the record for a drama.
Oh.
Over 15 times.
Should have been more. Tyranny deserved so many Emmys for this show. And oh my God, that's everything. Oh, and lastly, must other people see this specific episode?
Yeah. If you're going to be just watching one episode of ER, like me, like I don't know if we're ever going to be doing drama week again. This was a heavy week. All these episodes were very long, Brett.
I know, yeah, that was 90-minute Love Boat surprised all of us.
um I would say that if you're just watching one ER episode, you can brag to your friends, "Oh, I've seen the Quentin Tarantino
Yeah.
episode." And you don't have to, answer more questions about ER. You can just be like, "Oh, I'm a fan of Quentin Tarantino and Glorious Bastards was a really good movie." You know.
But if you want to watch a really intense episode of ER, there are a whole lot more. A helicopter falls on a main cast member at one point and kills them, which is like literally the show's jumping the shark, I think, is the helicopter
The helicopter falls on
falls on
on someone. Was it someone we saw in this episode?
no, that's not
Oh,
till they don't come around to season 4.
okay. So you can check it out on Hulu. You can check it out on Max. There was also a Serbian version
Which
that has
now I
done.
need to see.
There are 4 seasons of a Serbian version. Um, that was one of the cool things about this was that it was licensed out to other territories to be like, make your own ER. The only one that I know has done it is in Serbia. There was maybe 10 years ago they were talking about one in Colombia as well, but as far as I could tell, it hasn't been
But
made.
they didn't use like plots, did they? Or
I don't
did they
think so.
use
It was like,
characters?
I mean,
Because
it has
ER
a
is a
different
very
name.
generic title.
Urgentny Center. That's what it's called in Serbia.
Eh.
Urgentny Center. Centaur.
Yeah, please, everybody, watch ER. And everyone else, check out the Patreon, Must Have Seen TV, or patreon.com/must have seen TV. And content we're looking at a July, first week of July, big push,
Yep.
big launch.
Next season, and check us out. We're also doing we're redoing our upfronts, which
Oh yeah, yeah.
before every season we're going to be talking about the episodes we're going to do. So we're not sending text messages the night before we record being like, "Do you want to do Mork and Mindy?" So we had so much fun doing the upfronts with the last 3 episodes of the drama season that we're going to make it a regular thing. They're very casual, no notes. You get to see us riff on all kinds of stuff.
As
talk
we
about
figure
stuff.
out what is the theme, I do think we need to try a 4th of July 1950s sitcom episode if
I would
possible.
love to do that. That would be so much fun.
Because that's another thing I didn't even really bring up is that the what I also love about ER is that the first like episode or two of every season is a summer episode, and you rarely get to see summer television back then, and it captures the feeling of summer so well.
We've got
I love this show.
we've lost too many patients. Let's do the beach episode.
Oh God, wouldn't that be great? Well, we kind of got that on the roof this episode. Ethan, where else can people find you?
Check me out on Ethan K55 on Instagram, and check us out. Drop us some comments on our YouTube or our Apple Podcast page. Brett, how about you? Where can we find you?
Please follow me on Instagram at Brett White. Follow my drag exploits on YouTube at Barb Hardly. And yeah, rate and review the show in ACAST and in Apple. And also thank you, ACAST, for hosting all of this. And I guess that's everything, right? I mean, I guess we'll just
We'll see you
see
soon.
everyone on Next Time I Must Have Seen TV. Cue the music. That will be there eventually.
Bye, everyone.